and today I'm going to be doing a get ready with me. Just finished my weekend, which is Sunday and Monday right now, and I'm getting ready to go back into work. And I've been meaning to shoot this video ever since Michelle Wong posted her vlog from Morocco, because it sparked something in me, and it's something that's been going on for me for a long time, but it really resonated when I was watching Michelle kind of hit that gong of memory and a place where my mind always sticks. If I were telling you a story about my life, which I'm going to be doing a little bit of today, these are moments that I would highlight for you to explain something in me, which is ambition. So I've got a cup of coffee, caffeinating to start the day, but I want to do a get ready with me. I don't know that I'll be talking about all the products, but I will try and list them below, and I'll probably also be leaving a soundtrack for this video, because music does play heavily in some of my moments, you know, those key peak moments in time. So I'm gonna talk about this idea of ambition and where it's led me, what adventures that I've gone on because of it, and how I'm trying to, at this point in my life, balance between being in the moment, appreciating where I am and where I've been led to, but also still harboring that ambition and letting it not drive me, but kind of propel me in a lovely way. So anyway, let's get started. I'm gonna start out with sunscreen. This is the Summer Fridays, and then I'm gonna be just going through stuff, but I just did want to mention this. This is my favorite sunscreen. I tried out a lot of them, and this came out on top. I like the blurring. I like the fact that it doesn't feel tacky or heavy or weird or waterproof like some of the other ones do, and it plays well with makeup, and I just love it. So anyway, in the Wayback Machine. When I was young, except for a brief stint where I wanted to be a fashion designer, I pretty much always knew I wanted to be a writer. This is something that, you know, I'd absconded with my parents' old manual typewriter, and I would take time to write stories, and I didn't have any clean, you know, typing paper, so I would just use lined paper. But I wrote all sorts of stories, and I just read continuously, and I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a writer. But the problem is, no one in my family had ever thought about the fact that one could survive working as a writer. But everybody knew that you could be a teacher, you could be an English teacher. My aunt on my father's side was a teacher, and also on my father's side, my oldest uncle was a teacher. And so everybody knew you could make a living teaching. That made sense. And so I ended up going to college to be an English teacher. And somewhere along the line, I also took a playwriting class and did some other things creatively. Took a lot of poetry classes. And on the whole, though, I ended up getting a career as an English teacher. And I went and taught high school for a while in a very small town of 900. And I ended up, I had some traumatic experiences as a volleyball coach, but I ended up getting my MS diagnosis while I was teaching high school for multiple sclerosis. This was 98. And so I decided I would go to grad school and work on getting a master's degree, to what end? Maybe to teach college, because I felt like it would be much less stressful than teaching high school, which is correct, but it's still incredibly time intensive, especially when you teach composition and you have to read all sorts of papers and grade them. But anyway, it was along that time that I started screenwriting, and really fell in love with that as a way of communicating. I'd always loved movies, but I didn't really understand that there was a job as a screenwriter that a person could actually do. So I finished my master's degree, which is in medieval and comparative literature, which is completely useless in most circles. If you want a job as a medievalist, you pretty much have to wait for a person to die in a department so you can take their spot. And they live a long time because they're medievalists, of course. So in the meantime, I taught college composition. I taught edit, because a lot of times when you start out, you don't have a full-time position anywhere. You have a limited position. So taught for a while at a university, and then I taught at a community college, and I also taught at a high school. It was like the high school for wayward teens. But I was writing all the time, but there was something inside me that just felt like, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And I went to the movies and I saw the movie Hidalgo. Well, I take that back. I went to the Fellowship of the Ring, I think, and I saw the trailer for Hidalgo. And it had the billowing sands of the desert, which I'd always kind of been captivated by. But there were the stunning images of the desert, and I was suddenly hit with this utter pang of desolation that I would never get to see the deep desert. And I was just so hurt by that idea that I might never. And that wasn't an odd sort of a thing. I didn't fly in a plane until I was an adult. The place where I grew up, a very small town also, not 900, we were about 3,000. But the idea of never being able to have those adventures, to have that in real life experience, just was horribly depressing at that point. And I ended up, the town that I was living in, where I was teaching, had a river and a levee system that you could walk along. And late one night, I was sitting on the levee, and it was very beautiful. The lights from the city were sparkling onto the water, but I was feeling desolate. And I had my portable CD player, I know. And I was listening on repeat to the Everclear song, Sunshine, That Acid Summer. And just, again, feeling that desolation of potentially unlived dreams. And I'd had it in my head for a long time, that I wanted to do something, like that there was an ambition living inside me. And some of that I blame Madonna for. I had watched her Like a Virgin tour back in the day, and the tape, that was a VHS tape, again, showing my age. And at the beginning of it, she had this kind of Betty Boop voice and was talking about, I had a big dream, I moved to New York, and I made it happen. And to me, I'm gonna use this blush because it feels very ambition-y to me. It's these are KVD with the addition of an Ofra highlighter. And I love the fact that Madonna never apologized for her sexuality, and also that she constantly reinvented herself. So like growing up, I had a picture I'd cut out from a magazine of her, and then I had one of Karina Everson, who's a weightlifter. Those were along my bedside as my role models at that point in time. But so I kind of had some idea that I wasn't really fitting where I was, and I wasn't really doing what I was put on the earth to do. And so there, that night on the levee, I was just, again, morose and sobby and listening to a song over and over again, as sometimes an obsessive compulsive might do. But then a little bit later, I had a dream. In my dream, I was in the valley that I was living, which had hills all around it. And I laid down on the grass in the dream and I fell asleep in the dream. And when I woke up in the dream, I looked down and I had grown into the ground. Like parts of me had sprouted roots and were growing into the ground and anchoring me down. And so I ripped myself up and I saw that my hands had these roots growing out of them. So I scraped it off, and then underneath were these little tiny fingers they were my fingers, but they were just little baby tiny fingers, and it looked like, you know, they were just the beginnings of sproutings of fingers. But I had ripped all these roots out. And I woke up and I felt like that was a sign, if there was one, that I was growing into the ground and that I would never leave. And so it was. I had some friends that I had met who were moving to New Mexico. And so I decided I was going to do it. I was going to join them, and that would be my way of getting out of where I was living. And I'd have a support network. And then from there, eventually I would move on to LA to do the screenwriting thing. And so moved to New Mexico. And New Mexico was really lovely. It's another like high desert sort of place. And I was there for a while, and then I ended up, because I thought, well, I've got my plan. I'm going to go to LA. And I'll just, I'll be smart about it. I'll work, I'll save some money. And then, summertime, I figured, okay, in the summertime, I'll go ahead and I'll move. I'll have a plan. And I got the complete message from the universe suddenly, like somebody had just said it out loud. You have a month. And so it's like, okay, that was not what I had planned to do. That was not my clever plan for anything. I was going to take my time, Oh, I'm going to put on some bronzer just to give me a little bit of definition. So I knew in my head that I was going to be moving in a month. So I went ahead and I got on Craigslist, again, showing my age, found a roommate, and I went on a weekend, drove over to LA and met my future roommate. And it was okay. They weren't like a crazy serial killer, which, looking back, it's always that, well, they could have been, there, but for the grace of God go I is kind of like something that my life revolves around. It's like, oh, you could have died so easily. And I came back to work, and I was working for Chanel at that point in time. And one of my colleagues, she didn't work on the Chanel counter, but she was kind of the roving fill-in for things. But this really funny lady, Bernadette, and I told her, like, I made this, trek over to meet this person, and who knows, I could have, woken up dead in a ditch. She goes, oh, no, honey, it's called an arroyo, which, if you know New Mexico, that's funny. But anyway, that whole, like, no, honey, it's an arroyo. So anyway, I moved, packed up all my belongings, did one trip and then another trip. And my first day in LA was April Fool's Day. So April Fool's Day is my LA anniversary. I'm going to be using the Midnight Sun palette. This is the Star Wars. I love this. I think it's beautiful. I don't mind at all that it's, everybody's all sticker gate, but it's still really solid packaging, really lovely. Mine isn't skewed at all, and it's great. So because we're doing a look, I'm going to go in first with my Laura Geller kohl, my kajal, in black, and I'm going to set down some of my eye makeup first, because I'm going to be building a pretty intense look. So for me, that notion of ambition, you know, I don't have any aspirations that everybody knows my name, whatever. But I do want to be able to make a living writing and write things that I love, which in this case is movies and some occasionally bad poetry. So that's kind of been my aspiration. The thing is, I've been in LA now 16 years. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love the fact that there's all night grocery shopping. There's, you know, tons of hospitals that won't kill you. And when you live in a town of 900, you come to really appreciate all the things like movie theaters. So there's just so much here that I appreciate. And so I love LA. But there's definitely, you know, a lot of people don't love it as much, don't do as well, but I find that I've really flourished here. But that idea of ambition, and like I said, Madonna was a role model. When she came out with the Blonde Ambition tour, I was, you know, like all of it. Just really appreciate that kind of modeling. And I'm a little sad that, you know, now, when technically she could be doing a lot for the notion of aging and feminine power. The whole getting a butt lift or a butt implant, I'm not sure was the right idea, but you know, that's her choice, her journey. She's doing what she wants to do. I would say the one thing, you know, like the Incredibles, the whole, you know, you shouldn't wear a cape. I think that her falling off the stage because of wearing a long cape should pretty much, you know, if you thought that in the Incredibles that was, you know, no, that doesn't really happen. Real life Madonna did prove you should not wear a cape. So anyway, the idea now is that, you know, I'm here in LA and I have the one thing that ambition does do, is it can propel you. During times when you might get to feeling like, you know, things are hard, and ambition can keep you going. It can also kill you if you can't get to the idea that, you know, you have to love your life in the meantime, and you have to love the work itself. You know, when I think about, is there other things that I would rather be doing? Mostly no. There's some other kind of things that I love doing, which we're looking at it right now. But the idea that I had another career, and that I do all sorts of interesting work now as day jobs, really is pretty exciting. You know, it's the idea that I've had a lot of experiences and everything can be fodder for writing, which is the beauty of that. But that I've had a really good life in the meantime, so that if I never quote unquote made it, if I never had the 6-figure, you know, screenplay deal like they used to, that I would still think my life worthwhile and wonderful. And that's so the first one I went in with my transition color, the brown, and then I'm going to go in with the reddish matte color. But that whole, that you can enjoy your life in the meantime, and that the ambition part of it, that you don't let it eat you inside, because it can. It's the same kind of fuel. So I think about that idea of escape velocity, you know, the amount of speed and power you need to break through the Earth's gravitational field to get into space, and why they have to have the boosters on rockets that go up. I think a lot about, you know, it took a certain amount of energy, and in this case it was maybe despair energy, but that desire for something else, to launch me out of the gravitational pull that I was in, because in some ways that would have been easier just to stay there, to live out the rest of my life in this place, working at the jobs that I was working at. But it wasn't really where I was meant to be. So I had that energy to get out. I'm gonna go with this. And so that whole escape velocity is so important. And in some ways it's like that's the desperation, or that's the dream, the excitement, you know. And it's better if you can have excitement as your escape velocity of love and excitement, but desperation also sometimes works, or despair, just wanting something better and believing that it can be, or something different. And you also have to be able to maintain some of that while you're doing things, because you know, like I said, I've been here 16 years and I've been doing lots of things. I've met lots of interesting people. I've worked for lots of interesting people as well when I was working, doing different things in the business, as they say. But the really kind of thing that keeps me going is both the love of the work, the day-to-day, and that's what makes me happy on a day-to-day, but also that the desire for other things, for a life where I don't have a day job. I work writing and getting paid only for that. So that's where the ambition comes in, but also the whole trying to make it where that energy for getting that escape velocity doesn't burn you alive, where you're like, if I don't become famous, who am I? You know, and you have a lot of turnover in LA, especially with actors that have that fueling desire, but who have it eat them up inside, where they aren't happy with the day-to-day, they aren't happy doing what they're doing and doing the odd jobs. And it ends up burning them out and they leave LA. Which there's kind of a 2-year turnover for those kind of people, and that's no shade on them. You know, it takes a certain type of resiliency to do this, and it takes a certain type of resiliency to knock on doors and keep getting turned down. Gotta dance. So, you know, I understand that that's hard too. And sometimes people leave because it's either they leave or it eats them alive. They can't handle the idea of never being, whatever that is. And I want to recommend a poem. I'll also try and remember to link it below. But it's called Self-Improvement by Tony Hoagland. It's a poem. Unfortunately, Tony Hoagland died of cancer. I have no good things to say about cancer currently. But it's the idea of all the people with all the skills and the lives around you that never really get a chance to show themselves. So I think we're gonna go sparkly. It's a little too much sparkle. But that idea of loving the work in the meantime, loving your life in the meantime, but still wanting other things. But so for me, that's the, you know, that delicate balance of ambition and contentment. And it's hard because just the whole idea of wanting something and not really, you know, being there yet, or kind of being there, or being there and then not being there. That's the other thing about LA. Sometimes you can be doing work with great people and then suddenly, like, you know, the job ends because everything's kind of, the films are contractual, the TV shows are contractual. So you're on a season and then suddenly the season's over, and do you get asked back or not? You know, like things like that. I've got a small size of the Rare Beauty mascara. I'd gotten a little holiday, kind of a try-me sort of a package. Didn't love the eyeshadow that was with it. You know, not my favorite, but we're gonna be trying the mascara now, which I rarely do. I just got a new mascara because Better Than Sex came out with the chocolate, the brown version, but this just happened to be with the eyeshadow and I'd wanted to try the eyeshadow, so here we are. But that whole, the way that the entertainment industry is project-based like that, makes it where, you know, it's not, if you're part of a union, that helps a little bit for solidifying things, but then you have to make sure that you're working a certain number of hours and things to keep your union status, and that you're working enough where you can pay union dues. But unions are really important here. But because everything's project based, individually based, season based, movie based, you know, everything ends. And so that tests your resiliency again. Like, okay, now I'm back to being unemployed technically. Like, how do I hustle and find the next job? And if you're lucky, you have people that you work with that bring you to their next one. And sometimes they just can't. You know, sometimes, you know, the producer's son needs a job and there you are. But the idea is that you're continually being asked to find your reserves again, find your grit, find your, you know, and sometimes that flags and falters, and sometimes ambition can help you through that. But I liked, I was watching Khaki today talk about her goals for the coming year. It's really pretty funny. She's always good for some perspective. But she was talking about embracing the mystery of things. And I think that's the other part of it, is trying to be, ooh, that was a satisfying click. Oh, okay. Excuse me. The whole idea of, you know, you have these plans that you figure out, and then you let mystery come in and guide you. And that's another balancing sort of a thing, like, because I do think that there's a lot of to the mystery. This is from the Mikayla Part 2 in Glamlite for a liner. There's a lot of luck. There's a lot of happenstance. There's a lot of mystery. There's a lot of strange connections. And I feel like you can't underestimate that, but it's nice to have all of the things, to have a plan, to have the ambition, to have the roadmap, and then when you get lost along the way, there's something to look back to and go, oh, what am I really caring about? And it's when you goal set rather than doing the normal, like, I want to lose 10 pounds. That's fine. No shade on that. But have things that are more overall goals, because the strategies have to change. They always do. They always require you to do something differently or to try a different strategy. The goal's the same, the strategy changes dramatically due to all sorts of circumstances. So, you know, I try to have the overarching destination in mind, but to be open where the universe can help me out when it would like to. I'm gonna put on a gloss. This is the Colourpopl. This is Platinum Blonde. I think this is, yep, Platinum Blonde. This is the most lovely sparkly pink. It's technically one of their luxe glosses, but it's not as sticky as some of the other ones. So I really like it. And it's got just super cute package with the little stars. But I figured, you know, in honor of the Madonna Blonde Ambition, I would be wearing the Platinum Blonde. This is, I believe, from the collab with the creator who's kind of the Marilyn Monroe lookalike, or in the style of. So anyway, cheers. It's still fairly thick, don't get me wrong, but it's not like the lip oil. But it's not horribly sticky like some of the ones. It's just kind of sticky. Okay. So I feel like it's always for me the finding the middle road, you know, ambition and contentment, relaxation and activation, you know, always trying to figure out what is relaxed and allowing, what is rudderless, you know, and then just embracing that idea that I can be ambitious and not have that be a dirty word. But also that I'm not like one of those people like, I'm gonna make it no matter who I have to, you know, slight along the way. You know, because I do believe that, you know, karma can be a son of a bitch. So anyway, where I'm at now, you know, I still am writing, I'm still working on things. Right now I have a day job in clinical research, which may change at any time. Again, does it serve the larger purpose? And when it stops serving the larger purpose, does it at least allow me the ability to chase the larger purpose in my copious free time? Well, it's not copious, granted, but anyway, let me get a little closer so you can see the look. I'll try and put things that I mentioned in the description box. And definitely, you know, this is fairly personal for me, but I just wanted to let you know where this idea of my ambition comes from, and where, you know, this lies. And my passion for beauty and makeup is nestled nicely alongside of that. So I feel like it's part of that making a good life as a whole, something that I'm enjoying being a part of and want to stay on the planet for. So there it is. So anyway, I've got my ambition look. Probably I could have done a little bit darker of a lip, especially with my glasses. It cuts down a little bit on the wow of the eye makeup. But anyway, I'm gonna get in closer so you can see it. Don't panic. Okay. All right, ready to start the day. Anyway, hope all of you are well. Hope if you are trying to go somewhere, you have that escape velocity to get there, and that you are content in the meantime so you don't burn yourself out. Anyway, love you guys. Take good care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.